All right, so welcome to Guy Next Door Speaks. I'm your host, Ivan from Phoenix. Today is Thursday, April 2nd, 2020, and this is the first video for Guy Next Door Speaks. And for this first video, I'm doing a roundtable similar to what was done a couple of months ago with Francesco from Italy, where we discussed anarchy. And again, it's going to be the same familiar faces, hopefully. Myself, I'm from Phoenix, Francesco out of Italy, Mark Devlin in the UK, and Nathan Riddett, you're also in the UK, right?
That's correct.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. So this episode, we're going to talk about what everybody else is talking about, the World Series. Oh, wait, no, that's not happening. Neither is NBA, neither is soccer, neither is hockey. Everything's canceled. Sorry. Yeah, that's right. Oh, rewind. Yeah, we're going to talk about a little thing called coronavirus, something, COVID-19, COVIDiots, what I call it. Everybody that believes that crap. Anyway, so yeah, we're going to address that. But before we do that, today, like I said, is April 2nd. And a couple of months ago, the truther, anarchy, conspiracy theorists, freedom community, we lost someone very near and dear to me, kind of from long distance, but someone that pretty much impacted all of us here in this video in one way. And that's Barb Talica, as she's known on social network, but that's Barbara Marinelli. And that was Mark Passio's significant other for about 13 years. And so she passed away a couple of months ago. And I just wanted to dedicate this episode to her memory, because like I said, Mark Passio is what on earth is happening is something that brought all of us here together in one way or the other, because Mark Devlin heard of me through that show. Francesco heard of me through that show. I'm sure Nathan Reddett's come across the natural law work there. And yep. According to Mark Passio and others in that group, a lot of that what on earth is happening would not have gone off the ground if it wasn't for Barb. So I just want to dedicate this to her. And I have personal experiences with her, the 2 Free Your Mind conferences that I went to, or 3. Hung out with her, got to know her. My conference out here in Arizona, Truth, My Reality, she came out to assist Mark. And so we hung out and got to know each other. So it's very shocking when someone that we can talk to and relate to every once in a while all of a sudden disappears, it's gone. And as far as the details to that, that's been kept kind of private. Most I can say was that it was like accidental. So whatever, that means. I know there are also some conspiracies. Some of us might think, right before this big pandemic breaks out, she drops, she's gone and all this is going on. Could that have been one of the early cases of it or something? And, during these times, a powerful voice in Mark Passio is not coming out because he's dealing with the loss of someone so important to him. So I just wanted to put all that out there, and I'll just open it up if anyone has anything to say. I know Mark Devlin, we both met her in Philadelphia at Free Your Mind. So any thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, I met Barb 3 times at 3 consecutive Free Your Minds. And she also came out to your Truth, Mind, Reality in Phoenix in 2018. So we met again there. She was kind enough to buy my books and show an interest in my work. We had a little chat. I was just saying to you off air there that the timing has to be considered interesting in that she passes away directly before all this coronavirus madness kicks off. Now, I don't know the circumstances behind how she passed away, and I shouldn't speculate on it because I have no details. But had she stuck around and it had been business as usual, you can be pretty sure that Mark Passio would have been a very loud voice in talking about this current situation that we have. A worldwide lockdown, house arrest for the vast majority of the world. This is a guy who starts every one of his shows by reminding us that government is slavery. And if we don't have a living example of that dynamic right now, in that we're being told by our governments where and when we can go out of our own houses, then I don't know what would fit the bill more. So you can be pretty sure that Passio would have a lot to say about this if he were in any regular state to come out and do his thing. Obviously, he's dealing with the grief of the situation. And like I say, he's been kind of neutered and kept away from the scene by this situation with Barb at a very interesting time. I'll just leave it there.
Right. Okay. Nathan, I know your natural law work. So again, big inspiration, Mark Passio, and
Indeed.
by extension, Barb. So any words?
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. You know, none of this will, like you said off air, you know, we wouldn't have all met and interlinked if it wasn't through the what on earth is happening. And, you know, Barb was instrumental in that, supporting Mark in the great work. So, you know, it is a great loss. And, you know, I'm grateful for her support of Mark, and obviously his work in touching everybody in the critical information that he brings with natural law and the occulting and all the mind control techniques and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's very sad. It's very sad.
Right. And Francesco, you too, both of us would not have met through, if it wasn't for the What on Earth is Happening, through the Discord, through his more recent iteration of the show. So any thoughts on Barb's passing?
Yeah, you're right. And well, I obviously didn't know her. And one thing, she was actually subscribed to my channel. I think after my first interview with you, Ivan. So yeah, I was surprised anyway, even if I didn't know her personally. And yeah, so like. I don't know. No surprise that you know, during this time, Mark has not Mark has had to stop what he was doing. Very understandable, and I think also, you know, maybe we can talk about it a little bit later. But I think, you know, that event plus the situation that we are facing right now, and the response of the people in the aggregate, in the majority, regarding the majority of the people, maybe another thing that you know, would have maybe discouraged, you know, somebody like him, for example, after all these years and after all the work that has been done to warn the people about this sort of situation, and to try to put some solutions out there, and seeing, you know, what is happening right now, and the people, you know, in general buying it, you know, hook, line, and sinker. I don't know. Maybe that's another thing that will keep somebody like him in a state of a little bit of maybe not wanting to, I don't know, I guess go back to
work. Go back to great work. Yeah.
Well, you know,
I would understand. I would understand that, like, completely. So,
Mark, you were going to say?
I was just going to say there's a lot of people now paying attention to the work of David Icke, who previously had dismissed him as a nutter. My dad has actually been, he feels very disempowered, like he can't do anything in situations like this. But one thing he has been doing is going up and down the street where he lives, knocking on doors. A lot of people aren't coming to the door because they're afraid they're going to catch some virus and die on the spot because of what they've absorbed from the mainstream media. But some people that have answered the door, he's been talking to them about the work of David Icke, and he said you should take a look at this guy's website, listen to some of his interviews, watch some of his videos, because he's been warning about this type of situation for years. And if there is any positive to be gained from this whole situation, I think it's that a lot of people that had previously been written off as conspiracy nutters are getting somewhat vindicated in terms of the things that they have warned against for many years coming true very quickly and becoming a very real part of our lives. So I think a lot of people are starting to pay attention to the likes of David Icke and many other researchers. So I guess we have to try and find some positive in that. Obviously, not everyone is going to pay attention to truth and is going to come to realizations of the true nature of our overlords who seek to control us, but a few might. And if a few come out of this situation seeing the world in a different way, then that's got to be something of a benefit to all of this, right? I'm just trying to find the positive in this situation.
Right. Okay, so getting into our topic then from that with Barb. Barb, to me, actually reminds me of The Lord of the Rings and a lot of films like that, or stories like that, where someone very small or kind of insignificant or nobody pays attention to, how their one little act that they do has a major impact. So look, Barb, no one had ever heard of her. She helped support Mark in What on Earth is Happening, and her one little thing, now that keeps spreading. And I kind of touched on that in one of my earlier podcasts about even the smallest person can do the most smallest thing and have the biggest impact. So just by her helping support Mark Passio, look at all of us, the knowledge that we know, so all of the light occult knowledge that's out there because of that. So like Mark says, or Passio says, that in whatever way you can help, you don't have to do your own podcast or hold your own conference or make your own documentary, just little things, just whatever, financing something or just, distributing something, just any little act is part of the big, great work, so many hands make light work. So just wanted to kind of put that in perspective as far as Barb, someone a lot of people never heard of, but how big of an impact she actually had. And now going on to what the topic, I don't know, we can kind of start in a positive, even though everything's all negative. But yeah, I just finished watching a YouTube video by Dana. I forgot her last name. She's one of the ones a couple of weeks ago that first released that information showing how the coronavirus symptoms in Wuhan and the 5G was going on, and breaking down 5G and how its effects on the human body can, mimic whatever quote unquote symptoms they say coronavirus has. She just released another video a day or two ago showing citizen reporters out there, people power, actually in New York, going to the hospitals with the video cameras on their phones, recording, no lines, no big old, people dropping like crazy and emergency rooms overflowing and, all these ambulances out, being this. Nope, none of that. So it's an excellent video. Citizen Reporters, I think it's called. And I'll share a link later. In fact, I might be able to pull it up here because I have the video. Let's see. All right.
Just while you're doing that, I'll say that it's the same situation in the UK. And I had correspondence with somebody yesterday whose partner works in one of the big hospitals in one of the big cities in the UK. And this is one that is we're being told through the mainstream news that this place is inundated with patients. The staff can't cope. It's at breaking point. And this guy that works in the hospital has given us the insider's view. And he said that the A&E ward is empty. There's just rows and rows of beds with nobody in them, and the staff are just kicking around with nothing to do. And yet we're being told that this is one of the hospitals that's completely inundated. So we're being lied to by the corporate media. Why would that even be a surprise?
Right.
What's that mean?
What hospital was it?
It's a hospital in Bristol. Not sure which one, but it's one of the ones in Bristol.
Okay,
it
so
should be interesting.
Go ahead.
It should be interesting if people will be able to do that over here, in particular in Lombardy, which it's the most affected region of Italy and of the world, basically. But hey, since nobody can move, nobody can do anything.
Yeah, it would take somebody that is able to still go to work and can report from the inside.
Yeah.
Obviously,
that hadn't shut down their mind before, they shut their mind in that moment after they showed those images. And I'm not saying there weren't bad people in there, but who knows who were they? Who knows if they died from this new illness? Apparently, who knows?
Or if they were real bodies, even.
Exactly.
Yeah, we could.
I mean, what are we all thinking in terms of whether this virus is real? Because one school of thought is that what we're looking at is the flu, which comes along every year, around about this time, kills thousands of people every year, goes unreported by the mainstream. So some people would tell you that this is just the flu, dressed up to be something that it's not, given a scary new name and branded a pandemic. And then other people will say, no, this is a very real thing that has been cooked up in a laboratory. It's been deliberately unleashed. Do we all have any thoughts on this? I mean, Nathan, you've been quite ill recently.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the virus is real because I think that I've had it. I mean, I haven't had a test, but on the 14th of March, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I had the headache, I had the cough, fever was coming and going, and the aches were something else. And it's probably one of the worst illnesses I've had. So I think it's a real virus. It's just that obviously they're ramping up. They like with most agendas that they run. There's always multifaceted reasons behind it. So with this virus, they're probably attributing a lot of deaths that weren't directly from the virus to the virus. So obviously putting there's a lot of interesting things off the back of that with that. With the bonds, the pandemic bonds, which need to reach a certain amount of numbers in order to get triggered. And there was the Hong Kong protests at the time, which they were just completely losing control. They were just unable to control the protests there in Hong Kong. I think that this has been going on for longer, but it's really ramped up in the media as we're approaching the season of sacrifice. And then they're taking our freedoms down, and it's driving people further into Stockholm syndrome, and people that have got the mainstream media on in the background 24/7, ramping up the fear. I mean, it's a perfect divide and conquer play because everyone's 2 meters apart from it. No one's interacting and socializing. So it ticks so many of the boxes for the sort of the globalist New World Order agenda. And it looks like they're installing a lot of these 5G systems whilst the schools are closed and everyone's, on house arrest kind of thing. So, yeah, I think it's a real virus. I think I had it, and it wasn't nice at all. There's only a few other things I've had in my life which were worse. It laid me up in bed for 10 days. I didn't eat for 14. I was ill. I was very ill, and I'm healthy. I'm a healthy person, so I can see why people that are suffering from health and the older folk would suffer from this a lot more. So that's kind of really my take on it. I think it is a weaponized. I think it's just flu, which has been like a chimera. They've altered the DNA, and there's an article in the 2015 Scientist.com talking about this and the ethics of messing with nature to this degree, and obviously we've got the level 4 Bill Gates funded biolab in Wuhan, which coincidentally goes alongside the launch of the 5G, wasn't it? One to be the first cities to launch 5G. I don't think it's from bats, although there is a bit of a talking point with this, and so in pandemics, or the threat of pandemics, and eating animals, because they all come from animals, right? It's not bats.
And coronavirus is an anagram of carnivorous.
Carnivorous, indeed. Yeah, there you go. So
it's also an anagram of virus or a con.
So that's really kind of my overview. That's my take on it. I think it's real, but I think that they're really milking it for their benefit. You know, like with chemtrails, there's not just one reason for it. There's multifaceted reasons, and they make the most of these things. Yeah, I think it was released for the Chinese New Year to go into the season of sacrifice, with, you know, a lot of people getting killed off, a lot of fear and loss of freedoms. And yeah, no doubt they're pushing for mandatory vaccines off the back of it. Cashless society, you know, it's just power. It ticks all the boxes.
It's a perfect gateway, yeah, because fear, like Francesco and I have talked all the time, fear is the mind killer, like from Dune, right? So, yeah, in fear, they can get everyone to do anything. So, yeah, that opens up the doors to all possibilities for these, psychopathic rulers. Quite a few things there. I found the video, but my laptop processing power is kind of, low. So if I play it, it's probably going to crash everything. But it's by Dana Ashley, and it's some good news, citizen reporters doing what the mainstream media won't. So, and that's going to hospitals and showing that there are no huge lines of people getting tested, and ambulance drivers are just chilling in their ambulances watching Netflix. And yeah, and this is in New York, Kentucky, Los Angeles. All over the U.S., there are citizens actually going out there and doing what the mainstream media isn't, which is reporting the truth. So that's at least one positive, that there's some people power out there. There's still some critical thinking left in America. So maybe a small little percent, but at least it's better than nothing. So, all right. So, Francesco.
If I may just add something, I wanted to say that I agree with what Nathan said. I think based on the things that I've looked at, and on the research that people are doing online that I've been looking at, I think the virus exists, and I think it was I think it was released. They don't need to make a huge. They don't need to have it to have released it in a huge way. They just need, some places, some epicenters, and then, fear and panic and the collapse of an already crumbling medical system, like in Italy, would have done the same. Would have done all the damage, the most of the damage. And obviously, this is to get rid of some of what they called, very kindly, useless eaters, like the elderly and the people who can't basically work as efficient slaves for the system. So get rid of some of these people, and but yeah, this for the most part we have to look at the reasons, because we could be here talking, for weeks, going on for weeks about the virus and how and what it is.
Well, we got nothing else to do, right?
Yeah.
It's not like we can go to the pub.
Exactly. But apart from that, I want to stress to people that the importance of this event is why it has been pulled off, why it has been triggered. And another thing, there are also all these speculations about the correlation with the 5G, and I think that it's definitely suspicious in that way. If anything else, just the fact that this is a perfect cover-up while everybody's looking in this direction, everybody's scared of the virus. Nobody will look at when they start putting antennas outside our windows. And maybe they'll try to get us, when all this will be over, if it will be over one day, but when all this will be over, we'll just, many people will wake up and they'll have 5G outside their homes. So it's the kind of the perfect distraction for that too.
Right,
it's distracting from a lot of things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry. Nobody's talking about Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein anymore.
Yeah.
The Hong Kong protesters are gone.
Yellow vests.
The yellow vests in Paris are gone.
Exactly.
All these things that were in the news are no longer in the news. And as you say, when we come out the other side of this, whenever it will be, nobody's going to remember all that stuff because we've got new things on our minds now. The timing is interesting as well, as Nathan made a reference there to the occult season of sacrifice, which is something Mark Passio talks about. Look at how this thing played out. Round about the spring equinox, 19th, 20th, 21st of March, that's when most nations got put on lockdown. Most of the European nations, some of the states in America, Australia, all around the time of the spring equinox. And this is the beginning of this 40-day period leading up to the 1st of May, Beltane, Walpurgisnacht, very important date in the occult calendar. If you look back over the years, many stunts have been pulled round about this time of year. Lots of wars have started, lots of false flag terror events have kicked off round about this time. They do favour this time of year for these types of events. I don't know whether that means it's going to peak round about the 1st of May and then it's going to start to level out. I guess we can hope that it might, but the timing becomes interesting. Like we were talking, the situation with Barb, the timing is interesting there. It's something to look at. And also, there are elements of predictive programming that you guys may be aware of. Whenever you get a false flag terror event or any kind of major world event, people always uncover aspects of it that have been encoded into movies and TV shows and such. So there was this Dean Koontz 1981 novel called Edge of Darkness, where it talks of this bioweapon being cooked up in laboratories in Wuhan, China, a pandemic that gets unleashed. So that's a bit strange. Then there was a psychic by the name of Sylvia Brown that put out a book in 2008, and it was her prophecies for the future. And she stated that in or around 2020, there will be a major pandemic that will hit the entire world, have a devastating effect, and then it will disappear almost as quickly as it came, she says. So this was her prophecy for the future 12 years ago. Then there's Asterix and Obelix, you know, the comic strip coming out of France. They put out a new book in 2017, a new Asterix adventure. And there's a point in the story where, for no apparent reason, all the characters start chanting coronavirus, coronavirus. There's a movie called Contagion that came out in 2011. You've got a Lawrence Fishburne character. He's playing a government minister, and he's giving advice on how to deal with a pandemic. And he's using terms like social distancing and self-isolation. So who had heard of those terms before 2020, apart from in this movie that came out? So it seems that this has been long planned for. And I wonder if the scriptwriters for this took that Dean Koontz novel from 1981 and thought, oh, we can use this. We'll just write the script based around this. But in any kind of situation like this, you always get these elements of predictive programming, and this one is no different. And it kind of proves that this was known to be coming, and it wasn't some random event that just came out of nowhere.
There was a Japanese movie as well a few years ago, and they're talking about the coronavirus being a modified like chimera strain, and so there's quite a few predictive programming, like you said, Mark.
Yeah.
One thing that I'd like to point out as well is that the actual symbol for the coronavirus is black sun symbolism. So that kind of says quite a lot to me. Looks like
Okay.
black sun.
Yeah, there's a lot of hints. Yeah, predictive programming stuff. Adding on. Go ahead, Francesco.
That hip hop song that
I was gonna say.
Song.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was a rap song. I shared it with Mark Devlin also. Yeah, from 2013. Allegedly, I don't know, but the YouTube upload shows 2013. I know a lot of these things can be manipulated somehow. However, there's some obscure rap song that a minute and 8 seconds into it, the lyrics go 2020 coronavirus, bodies stacking. It's like, okay, 7 years ago. Okay, coincidence. There's what else was there? Oh, there's the 2017 cover of The Economist, where you have like 8 tarot cards on the cover, and they're like just fake tarot cards, but like the second one is a yellow card and it has Trump sitting on top of the world, and he's holding a mitre in his left
card, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then he's got what looks to be a crown or something, but a corona on his right, and he's sitting on the American flag on a throne. Well, wait, it's not a chair, it's not a throne. The flag looks to be rolled like toilet paper, and he's sitting on it. hey, you can look this up. I did. I was like, yeah, right, whatever. Did a Google search, came up. Did a DuckDuckGo search, images, came up. So it's like, again, predictive programming. That, what is it, CDC vaccine guy, Fauci, whatever, that's out here. 2017, some kind of meeting with all these pharmaceutical people, whatever. There's a quote on there, a video that I saw where he talks about this new incoming administration is going to be facing a lot of challenges, especially a surprise, pandemic that might hit them in a few years. It's like, wait a minute, what? 3 years ago, the CDC vaccine guys talking about a surprise pandemic for this administration? Coincidence?
And nobody told Donald Trump.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Then there's another one. You
have
that
video with that guy Mike Pompeo, where he's saying,
Secretary of State,
he's saying this is a drill, and then Trump is standing beside him, and he goes, "You might have told us."
Yeah, it is a live. What was it?
Live exercise.
Live exercise. It's a live exercise, and Trump is saying, "Well, I wish you would have told us. I wish you would have told us." So it's like there's stuff all over the place that the mainstream obviously is not going to point at, and it's up to people to, power to the people. The people need to be, guess what, anarchists, rule themselves, no masters, and look at things. But if they don't, they just drag the rest of us down with them, like the crabs in the buckets, But we're trying to put that information out there. It's, one or two things, coincidence. But when you see over and over again and the same routine, like 9/11, fear, you got to take these rights away for your own protection. Now this, fear, take rights away, stay at home for your own protection. So they keep playing the same routine over and over again, and no one's the wiser. But anyway, so anybody have anything else to add along those lines? Predictive programming and stuff?
Programming, not so much, but as far as what you said, I wanted to say that I don't know if any, mainstream people or normies or whatever will ever watch this, but it's important that to remind them that there are informations that they can look at that come from mainstream people. There is a very good episode of The High Wire with Del Bigtree that explains. That shows a lot of these doctors with lots of titles before their name, like they are sort of academic monsters, and they are all taken. They were all taken by surprise at what the response is. The response has been by governments in the face of this supposed crisis. And they say, well, they just look at the numbers and they go, well, this would have been just another flu season, and there is really nothing special about that. So we are wondering why all this reaction, and we know why. But if people want to look at mainstream sources that are skeptical. Especially about all these measures, draconian measures that are being taken, they just need to go online, because again, in the mainstream news, they just don't report those. They just talk about what's the official line of spreading fear and panic, and just more government worship and more people being told to depend. To depend from the state to save us from this terrible situation.
Well, you can discover that this is a put-up job by looking at official documentation from some of these governments, particularly the UK government on the uk.gov or gov.uk website on the 19th of March. They actually posted a document stating that the COVID-19 coronavirus has been downgraded by UK health ministers, and it's no longer considered a highly contagious infectious disease. This was on the 19th of March. On the 20th of March, Boris Johnson announced that all pubs, all restaurants, all public places have to close. And then on the following Monday, he stated that you can't go out of your house apart from for exercise and to go and get supplies. So why are these draconian measures being introduced? at a time directly when this virus has been downgraded and the government itself is stating that it's not highly contagious. I've written to my local MP, just for the hell of it, to ask for her observations on this. And I've suggested that maybe the totalitarian measures that we're facing have an ulterior motive to them. I'll be interested in her reply. But, you know, people that don't place any stock in alternative news sources and they think we're all conspiracy nuts and all this might like to ask themselves why the government themselves on their own website made that statement and then closed everything down. Isn't that a bit strange?
Yeah.
And also, if you look at the years, in particular 2017 and 2018, if you look at the numbers for the first 11 weeks of the year, so it's pretty much the time period that we are in right now. And if you compare those to what's happening in 2020, like right now, you will see that we were in a much dire situation during those couple of years. And so, but did anybody notice? Did anybody notice? No.
They don't even report the figures on the mainstream news because it happens every year.
Yeah, they do report the initial fear numbers. Like I think it was out of the UK or something, that one doctor that said there was going to be like 500,000 deaths due to this. And then the next day he comes back and says, oh, you know what? My calculations are wrong. It was 20,000. So still, that's some bad numbers. But damn, from 500,000 to 20,000. And like we've seen throughout history, a mistake is put out and taken for truth by everyone. And then sometime down the line, the redaction comes out, but it's not in the main headlines. It's somewhere 6, 10, 20 pages in the back in a small little paragraph or just a small little audio clip, you know, but the damage is done. Everybody already got the first big headline of the lie, but then the truth or redaction, that gets put aside.
And you'll probably find 33s and 66s in there all over the damn place.
Oh, there's loads of 33s, loads of 33s going on. Yeah.
Yep.
Their little way of mocking us. They're dropping clues for those that can see, knowing that not many can. But
okay. I'm going to take you somewhere with that. Thank you, Mark. Yesterday at work, as many people know, I work at the post office, and I still, even though Arizona had a order by the governor for people to stay home, it's like really not a law because there's still people out and about. They're not really enforcing it. It's more of a suggested fear thing, but it's not a suggestion. But we're not enforcing it, but it's not a suggestion, but you know, it's like they play these games with the words. But what I was going to say is that I'm classified as essential. So thank you very much. The United States Postal Service, we're essential service, federal thing. So people still need their mail. So I'm exempt from whatever lockdown. I have a letter too that proves that. So, you know, it's sorcery. That little white paper with the black ink says, let this guy go. So when they stop me and say, papers, please, I can say, hey, shove it. So at the post office yesterday, I come across a magazine. I think it was Newsweek, March 23rd, 2020. Black cover. You have these red circle in the middle. It's a person standing in the middle of this red circle that's comprised of dominoes. And it's in a circle that looks like the coronavirus. It's got the edges. And in the top corner, you see the edges of 2 more circles. So I'm like, okay, what are they telling me? So I look at that. Why dominoes? Why not cards or dice or whatever? But it hits me. It's like, okay, there's the social distancing. They have everybody separated, but it's a dominoes and a person standing in the middle. And what happens with dominoes? What's like the metaphor with that you knock one down and all the rest of them fall down. So this one person is standing in the middle of all these dominoes shaped as coronavirus. So it's us, the people believing in this, are forming that. We're the ones creating this belief in that. Whereas if you knock down one domino, everything's going to fall down and the truth will reveal itself. That's how I interpreted that cover. So like Mark was saying, they put things out there to let us know, but people don't have the pattern recognition or what is it? I forgot the name. Symbol literacy to kind of put these things together. And so that's why it took me about 30 seconds or a minute just to look at it. Be like, okay, what do I see here? And it's like, okay, they have to put it out there. And it's like, okay, now you could put this together. And yeah, we're the ones pretty much feeding that. Yeah, not to negate anything that Nathan said. Yeah, there probably are, like the regular seasonal flu. Some of them get amped up with whatever, GMO, fluoridated water, previous vaccines, chemtrails, and I'm always taken back to the 1989 movie Batman with the Joker. He's trying to put his little poison out there, but he doesn't advertise it as poison and sell it. No, he's smart. He puts a little bit in the makeup, a little bit in the deodorant, a little bit in the toothpaste. So in the morning when people do their little underarm deodorant, their toothpaste, and their perfume, bam, there's the combination. So this coronavirus stuff, years and years it's been on the market that you have the Lysol wipes and stuff with, it kills human coronavirus. Like, okay, what's something that's out there we can use against the people? All right, why not? We'll work on this, So people need to put these things together, and I think that's what a lot of us are attempting to do. Not to run out claiming I have the truth and by God, my Bible. It's like, no, critical thinking. Just the signals are there, the hints are there. Put it together, and we'll see that things are not as we're being told. So, anybody have anything to add to go along those lines?
Well, I'd just like to say that a lot of what is going on seems to be voluntary on the part of corporations and on the part of people. You mentioned there that the government is not issuing orders that people have to do certain things and that businesses have to close down. It's issuing guidelines, and this is the language that's being used by the UK government. So when you go to a supermarket, they've all got signs up and they say, in line with UK government guidelines or recommendations, keep 2 meters apart, please observe social distancing. So these are guidelines, they're not instructions. So companies seem to be taking it upon themselves to instigate all these things because no company wants to be seen as the one that is flouting the rulings and is doing things differently. They don't want to be seen as irresponsible. They want to win some PR value out of all this and be seen as a responsible company. And then you've got members of the public who are self-policing. Who needs a slave master when the slaves enslave each other? People are crossing the pavement to get away from other people because of all the hype and all the fear and all the propaganda that they've absorbed. People going out with face masks and, wipes to wipe down the trolley before they go in the supermarket and all this. And people are sort of naming and shaming each other. I think Francesco mentioned that in Italy,
stay home.
You've got the order to stay home. And if people do go out on the streets, exercising their right to freedom of movement, their natural God-given right to freedom of movement, I would add, other people, other members of the public, neighbors, are reporting them and shaming them and grassing on them. So people are policing themselves. And, the architects of this situation, whether it's a hoax or a scam or not, must be pissing themselves laughing at the number that they've done on seemingly the vast majority of the general public who've bought everything the mainstream media has told them, hook, line and sinker, despite the fact that the mainstream media has a provable track record of lying over and over and over and over again about everything, and yet people still believe what comes out of their mouths, and they're structuring their entire lives around it. And unfortunately, as you said earlier, they're enslaving the rest of us who don't consent to this situation and don't want to be any part of it. We're being lumped in with everyone else because it's happening on a collective basis. So it's just incredible to me.
Yeah, I was at a major eatery kind of place, getting a little iced coffee. Okay, I'll say it, McDonald's. And I noticed they had the little yellow lines on the floor to stay however many distance away from the person. And the person in front of me got up to the counter to order, and the lady was putting her hand up, oh, sir, please, we have the line, stay behind that line. It's like, again, see, that social distancing. I'm going to take it a little further here. If we talk big picture possibilities, this is where it can get scary. However, hey, fuck it. We're here to tell the truth and put pieces together, let the pieces fall where they may. Social distancing, all right? Keeping people separate, at least 6 feet or whatever, or whatever other meters or centimeters or whatever. All right. We talk about 5G, how 5G is so such high, whatever, 1 inch millimeter or 1 millimeter signal frequency, 60 hertz, all these technical stuff,
millimeter wave,
1 millimeter wave, how it cannot penetrate certain solid objects or whatever. And I heard things about certain communities where they're cutting down trees and stuff to help the 5G transmit and all this. And someone brought this up, and then it made me like, oh, fuck, I didn't notice that. Yeah, social distancing, if everybody's lumped together, maybe the 5G can't penetrate each person, but if they're separated by a certain, distance, it's a cleaner line of, shot, where the 5G, okay, boom, boom, gotcha. And why are they forcing everyone to stay at home? Because a lot of Wi-Fi routers have already built in 5G, frequencies. So, plus, like you said, building the towers or activating towers around, if everyone, it's already targeted and people are separated, but they're in their homes, you can do families. I mean, there's a lot of dark stuff that can happen here. And why all the military really hasn't rolled out yet? Why all this stuff that they're preparing for the, all the numbers, we're preparing for the numbers and people don't see that? It's like, well, okay, because it may come in the next coming couple of weeks or month or so when everyone is at home. Everybody's being told to stay home watching Netflix and streaming online. And if everybody's doing that, everyone's not watching the same TV shows. So that means everyone's on the different tablets or laptops. That means Wi-Fi signals are being broadcast like crazy at that home. That means 5G is being broadcast. That means turn up the boiling water for the Wi-Fi signals for the internet. And maybe we're going to get a nice little increase in this. And the people that are going to come to test for it, because they can't test in the businesses on the street because nobody's out there, they got to go to the homes. And whoever's resisting, oh, well, we're here, we represent the government, we're here to help, and there's nice National Guardmen are here to make sure everyone's safe. Oh, you tested positive for this because you're in a home and all this 5G's around, you got to go. And little by little, it can take a drastic turn for the, even worse than what we think is happening now. It can become a reality a month or two from now. So no fear mongering here, but just
that one, brother.
Got
to hope you're wrong about that. I hope that's a worst case scenario.
Yes, exactly. But there's been maybe two videos. I've seen about 2 videos, one guy from LA, another guy, I think out of Texas, that they've been following a lot of stuff, and they tied in from 2015, the Jade Helm experiment exercises that were going on. I don't know if you guys remember this, around 2015, that there was all this Jade Helm. What's all this military exercise happening in the cities and all over? So it came, they did that, and it disappeared. Now, one of these researchers pointed out, a lot of the units that are being activated to help during this emergency are units that participated in the Jade Helm exercises. So it's like, hey, just be on the lookout, be careful what might come down the road. So again, we can be ignorant of all these facts, or, be ready and be like, hey, what might come down the pipe? So, not to scare everyone, but it's like, maybe right now it looks like, oh, nothing's going on, but you never know. Any thoughts on those things?
I think, like you were saying about the boiling frog, and this is another totalitarian tiptoe in that direction. And what would be the real hoax going on around all of this would be the fact that they are amping up the numbers, they're amping up the severity. This virus has a higher mortality rate than the seasonal flu and other things like that. So this is perfect fear porn, and like I said before, it really is showing the people that already have Stockholm syndrome, which is 98% of the people out there anyway. This is really, bringing it out even more in them. But I think, as the Northern Hemisphere warms up, as we're into the summer, we're going to see this virus die off. But we've still had another big step in the police state mentality of people, and people are accepting it, they want it. So it's just that, like you said, the boiling pot, where we will end up there, because people are buying it and they actually want it. They think this is the right thing to do, and the government, all hail Big Brother, the government for saving us.
I'm just wondering, sorry, Nathan, let me just say, I'm wondering where the consent is in all this, because normally we're tricked in some way into giving our consent to these situations, but I certainly didn't agree to this. You didn't. None of us did. What are your thoughts on
Most people do.
where the consent is?
Most people think this is a good. I mean, I've got
Fear is given.
I've got an estate agency, right, and I've got one person working in the shop at the moment. So, and we had a phone call, someone from the local community complaining that we're still open, and that it's a catastrophe, and we're letting the village down, and it's just apparently it's it's a really quite a nasty phone call that my colleague took. But that's the mindset, everything needs to be shut. It's just crazy, like you say, Mark. People buying the mainstream, they have telly on all the time.
People are keen on this at the moment, but if we're on lockdown for 3 months, how do you think people are going to be after 3 months of being forced to stay in their houses? It's going to be a different matter then, isn't it? That far down the line. Yeah,
Francesco, you were going to add something?
I was saying, it's the fear factor that it's the consent of the people who bought into the fear. And I have to agree again with Nathan that personally I'm at a loss when I talk to people, because I even though online there is been there are some doubts that are being raised even here in Italy, but if you go on the streets and it's really like it's terrible, like the mentality, like people are so afraid that I'm genuinely worried that they're really gonna accept anything after this. And the few people that protests, what can they do? The protest, what can they do? And another thing is, one other grave danger. It's every time now there's gonna be or they claim that there will be another Corona season or flu season.
Mm-hmm.
What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to be locked up again? I don't want to think about that, because I'm in a particular state here, having to accept all of this. I'm telling you, it's not easy, and the prospect of them being able to say, "Hey, new emergency, everybody locked up again."
Don't you think that the governments of the world could announce now that they're rolling back the safety measures and it's okay, you can go out again now, but people have been so conditioned by fear that they will actually continue, social distancing themselves voluntarily.
Yes.
They'll keep 2 meters away from the next person, even though they're told they no longer have to, because now that fear's been instilled in them.
I kind of shared in some of the media out here, whether Facebook or personal text messages to people, that a lot of this, again, reflects to Mark Passio's work, breaking down the formative years as children. Right now, these last 3 months have been, for society, formative years. There's a program being laid in, fear, stay home, stay away from each other. And a good 90+% of the population was like, okay, yeah. And I have 3 things to go back and fill in here. One, I had a coworker the other day that I shared some of this information with, and she was pretty reluctant, oh yeah, not loud in your head, yeah, but no, okay. You can tell the cognitive dissonance was back and forth. So I tried to simplify it for her. I said, okay, let me ask you this. What matters most to you? What's more important? Your health, your security, or your freedom? She said, oh, my health. It's like, okay, so you prefer to be a healthy slave? She was like, I prefer to be healthy because we're never going to be free. It's like, okay, so this is where that mindset is. So fuck it, freedom. We're never going to be free, so I prefer to be healthy. So, okay, that's just one person, at least. I know statistically that doesn't mean anything. But we know that there's a majority. Yeah, there are many that are like that. The satanic, mindset, selfishness. second thing I wanted to bring up was with what the hell was it? I should write these things down. Damn, now I'm drawing a blank. What else? What else was there? Oh, man. Damn it. Never mind. I'll see if it comes back. Anybody have anything?
I need you guys listen to the Vodafone whistleblower, the ex-CEO. Because YouTube were taking the video down. I've had a little bit of difficulty finding it, but I did listen to it today.
Oh, what's he saying?
It's going on about digital currency, 5G, replicate the symptoms. But whether it's a bona fide actual Vodafone CEO or whether it's just some guy. But I had to listen to it. I'm sure you guys are familiar with most of the conspiracies around 5G and Corona and the financial crash and digital currency and all that kind of stuff. But Cullen Smith from Lifting the Veil, are you familiar with that?
Yes.
That guy?
Yeah,
I am.
He's done a good article about Corona and 5G and how a lot of it doesn't add up, what a lot of the conspiracies. So that would be worth checking out. And Mick the vegan, he's done a good article about the Corona belt, which where most of the cases are in a specific banding around the planet with the temperatures and humidities. And so he's kind of predicting where it's going to sort of impact a little bit more. But that, that kind of goes back to what I was saying about the seasonal temperature, as the virus is going to die off as, and it wouldn't surprise me as the season of sacrifice comes to an end, to be honest.
I kind of remembered one of the other points.
Rolling. Oh, sorry. Go on then, mate.
When Mark was talking about consent, made me think of something, reminded me of something. I might have mentioned it to Francesco a week or so ago, but I had received an email regarding my router. Everyone knows, right? You have a modem and a router for your internet, and sometimes the routers are just the wired ones, or sometimes they're Wi-Fi transmitting. And my particular router is by Netgear. So I received an email from Netgear that there was a software update requirement. It's like, okay, I've never received an update for the actual, mechanical or component there. That's never happened. So I was like, what the frickin' hell? So I didn't agree to it. I just clicked open to see what it's all about and went to the site. And I started reading the terms and conditions. So it's not necessarily, I think, it's not necessarily an update of the software itself. It's an update of the terms and conditions. Because as I began reading this update for a router, which just happens to transmit 5G, one of the things that stood out to me was how, kind of like the vaccine industry is not liable for damage, this company was asking me to accept these new terms and conditions where they're not responsible for any kind of mechanical damage, physical damage, that or medical injuries from their equipment. I'm like, okay, now wait a minute. This is a piece of digital electronic thing. What physical damage can this do? 5G maybe? Then no, maybe 5G down the line may come back in 5 or 10 years. Oh, 5G. But guess what? You accept the terms and conditions, they're off the hook. They're not liable. You can't sue them. So these corporations, or at least this one corporation, in my eyes, this is how I interpreted this, was, not going to be able to be sued or responsible for any damage that may be revealed in the future based on 5G. So I was like, that's interesting. And I kept reading some more. And something else that kind of stood out for me was that this device that helps you get on the web, on the internet, started implementing some of the guidelines or restrictions, kind of like the social media networks like Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. And what makes me think that was that it was suggesting that they will not be held liable for any content, data, audio, video, anything digital that's transmitted through them that gets on the web that might cause, offend people, might cause, unease, disturbance. And the one that really stood out to me, any kind of rioting or social, disorder. I'm like, wait a minute, why is a digital piece of equipment, asking not to be held responsible for content that through them ends up in the web online that might create, rioting or social? It's like all these few little things start standing out to me, like, yeah, the software update is not about software and the, performance of the machine. This is them being held off the, taken off the hook for whatever damage might be revealed in the future that people, that occurs via 5G or any rioting or people like us, like, right now, that router is transmitting this data that we're sharing this information. So if any truth comes out in the future and it's like, oh, who can we blame? What's going on here? These people are taking the precautions right now early through a little software update or terms and condition update that they're no longer, they're not held accountable for anything that might happen. And that kind of reminded me of the whole.
How many people read those terms and conditions?
Exactly.
How many people even bother to read this stuff?
That when you were talking about consent, that's what came to mind. So.
Yeah,
any thoughts on all that stuff? I just had a little warning that my internet connection was unstable, but you guys can see and hear me okay, though.
Yeah, you're still there.
All right. So any thoughts on that stuff regarding consent, how these little things can slip in areas where we have no idea? This is a router, but yet it's kind of getting my consent. Well, I need it to stay online. So yeah, okay, click accept, but it's not a software update. It's terms and conditions. And that's a totally different legalese, sophistry kind of thing going on there.
Well, they're pretty much saying that they know that it's harmful to your health and can be used as a mind control weapon. Looking at all of those terms and conditions, and I think it's quite widely accepted, wasn't it? Brussels and Switzerland aren't going down the 5G route, so anyone that's looked into it for 5 to 10 minutes can see that it's seriously harmful weapons grade technology. And there's evidence that they know that by putting that in their terms and conditions. So they, like you say, like the vaccine manufacturers, they're completely, they don't have to worry whatsoever about anybody that dies or gets any disease or ill health from their vaccines, because the government will deal with that. It's the same, like you say, exactly the same, yeah.
Well, it's laughable to me that these sick, diseased fucks think that they can get off the karmic hook by their little methods of trickery, because, we all have a certain understanding of the occult and of natural law and of the way this reality is structured. And the idea that you can trick other people into getting their consent when they don't actually know what it is they're agreeing to, because you've achieved it by way of duplicity and deception. It's just ridiculous to think that that lets you off the hook from the higher power, and that you won't have to answer karmically for your actions when you come to leave this realm of existence. That's the way it always seems to me. How sick and diseased and twisted does your mindset have to be to think that you can avoid judgment by means of trickery like this?
Yeah, I think it shows their ego and their hubris, in the sense that they think they can mitigate, say, their karmic consequences, even if it's a little bit. Then they think, oh, that's okay, I've mitigated it a little bit, so I can carry on with my psychopathic tendencies. Yes.
I got a shock coming on the day they leave this world, I would suggest.
Let's hope so, mate.
I want to pick up on something, Mark. You said these sick people. Whether true or not, I know the other day somebody told me something. I know I see the headlines with all this, the prince, is it Harry and his wife? Wow, there's this, that I don't follow all that royal stuff. That's soap opera. Yeah. So how they left. They told me something about, oh, did you hear? Yeah, this is someone else that does some kind of conspiracy radio shows or listens to conspiracy shows or whatever. But they told me something that was a little bit interesting. And I was like, okay. And you mentioned the word sick, reminded me of this, how I've noticed in the headlines that there is some kind of separation between a certain prince and his, princess, whatever, and the royal family. This person told me, oh yeah, they tried to go into Canada and they were refused entry. So they came to the States or something, and they recently did some kind of interview. And in that interview, that prince guy, he said the reason they wanted to get away from that is because they're learning that they know that the rulers of this planet are sick. And not sick as in, oh, they got the coronavirus, but sick in the head. So it's like that they're sick, mentally sick. It's like, huh. So if that's true or not, I don't know. That's rumor or whatever, but that's an interesting thing there, that you're saying, that the rulers are sick, whatever, and then maybe even one of their own, this prince guy, whatever, he's out there saying, yeah, we got to distance ourselves from that now that he's married, has a wife, the kids, whatever. It's like, yeah, maybe this whole elite royalty thing isn't something it cut out to be. And, maybe some of the headlines might reflect that, because like I said, at the post office, I see all these magazines come through and like, oh, the royal family, the queen and this person, no, they're not on talking terms, or this person separate. It's like, that's what they're telling us, but maybe behind the scenes something else is happening. And I'm reminded of David Icke many years ago interviewing that lady, I guess Mark, you might know, or Nathan, that lady that either worked at the castle, Buckingham, or something that
Diana's friend.
Yeah, that Diana's friend reporting about, either the reptilians, or that they had planned for the brakes to go out on the vehicle. So insiders that know what's going on. So I'm like, hey, you know what? Either take it with a grain of salt or put it in there might be some truth somewhere in here, regarding this Harry guy, and finally saying, yep, they're sick in the head and I don't want anything to do with that. So any thoughts on that?
Well, he better watch what cars he gets into.
That's true.
Well,
okay.
yeah, I mean, you mentioned Diana, and she obviously displayed true benevolence, and that's no good for the psychopathic mindset of blue blood Illuminati lines, is it? So and we all know what happened to her in the ritualistic sacrifice.
Right. Okay. Now this can, maybe we're almost done here, but this can kind of bring it to a somewhat positive angle, that being Princess Diana, someone in there that kind of spoke out or knew what was going on, and we see what they did to her. Now maybe even this Prince Harry, is it, or one of them, so maybe people in there might, hey, whistleblowers, you never know. And I'm bringing this up because there are little elements that, if we notice, pay attention, are signs to give us some hope. And a few weeks ago at work, something happened that kind of, it made me feel better, like, oh, maybe something positive can come out. Maybe humanity isn't completely dead. And what I mean by that is that at work, there's a lot of different personalities, like in every other place, people that are cliques, you got this group together, that group together, this person likes this person, or this person can't stand these people. There's tensions all the time. So, you got a whole wide range of different emotions, So a lot of people don't work together. We have different machines at work, and the schedule is like, oh, I can't work with that person, I can't work with this person. It's like, okay, fine. There was one time a couple of weeks ago where we needed to do a certain task, and all these different machines, everyone came together in a certain section, and everybody chipped in, even though everyone didn't really like each other, yet everyone chipped in, and within 15 minutes, this task got done. And from like standing back, observing that, I noticed what was going on. I was like, wow, in my mind, I was thinking the worker bees, the worker ants, many hands make light work. So even though everyone had their differences and dislikes or whatever, when all that's put aside and everyone focused on one task and just hit it, it got done. It was done quickly. It got done correctly. And then everyone went back. And just that one little event made me think of humanity, where we're at. All it takes is maybe just that one spark, like a Barb doing her one little thing, or some other event, and humanity can come together. And like the video I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast today, that Dana put out, where you have citizen reporters, people out with their cameras recording, yeah, media says this, but look at what's actually going on. So perhaps if more and more people start putting all the bullshit aside, and maybe this is where this plan might backfire on the elites, having everyone at home and stay on the internet. Maybe some people might find more David Icke videos, Mark Passio videos, start watching these YouTube videos. Are like, wait, MSNBC and CNN are saying the hospitals are overridden with this, but this YouTube video shows nothing's going on. Hold on. And maybe that one little spark is people coming together and start focusing on, hey, we need to find out what's actually going on. And you never know. That's what I'm kind of waiting for. And sometimes I feel like, oh no, don't tell me has to be me or one of us that have to be that spark, whether it's a work we do or maybe even some kind of, God forbid, martyrdom or something like, hey, they came in to vaccinate me. I said, fuck no, we had a shootout and I got killed. And you see a Facebook page posting, oh shit, Ivan, something happened, whatever. Okay, keep scrolling, next video. It's like, what the fuck? Or people were like, hey, fuck this shit, one of our, and you never know what the spark's gonna be, but it's there. The potential is there for people to come together and do what needs to be done. So I wanted to kind of put that out there, possibly as a final, theme or topic.
I think we need to be very careful with hopium, because if we be completely honest with ourselves and we look outside on what's going on, people are buying this hook, line, and sinker, and they're so driven further into Stockholm syndrome, and that's the real epidemic. That's the real problem out there is religious type thinking and Stockholm syndrome, and that all those people coming together to do a task. I mean, that's great, and that shows true human nature, and we are benevolent, but the potentiality, the spell that people are under at the moment, because they've got the fucking mainstream TV on 24/7 in the background, dripping the dark world views, and there's no point, we're always going to be enslaved, humans are inherently evil, all of this kind of stuff. But I mean, I'd love to have some hope myself, but I look to see what's going on, and it's 99% of people have got religious type thinking and lack critical thinking and don't really know what's going on in the world, and they love their slavery and they don't want to be free. And that's the real fucking, excuse my language again, that's the real epidemic, and it does piss me off.
If I could just speak to that, I've mentioned in many other interviews that I've done, or I've asked people to consider what would happen if a group of the likes of us, activists, whatever, were able to take over BBC TV for one evening. Just imagine. We bum rush BBC TV studios, barricade ourselves in, and broadcast cold, harsh truth, backed up by documentary evidence about what's really going on. For as long as we're able to before security break down the door and carry us off. Now, if we were able to get half an hour on BBC primetime TV to prove to the general public that they're being lied to by their governments, that the world is nothing like they're told it is, that would have an incredible effect. And I'm reminded of two famous quotes from two of the biggest Illuminati bloody overlord scumbag pieces of shit that you could ever wish for. One would be David Rockefeller. I mean, both these have passed over now. God knows what their life reviews were like, or what price they're paying for their actions in this life. But David Rockefeller once made a quote to the effect of, "We have to thank the editors of the New York Times, the Washington Post, and all these other great newspapers for protecting us from the spotlight of scrutiny." So he's saying that these mainstream media outlets are there to avoid the truth from getting out and to give a skewed perception of what's really going on to people. And the other quote is from George Bush Sr., who said something along the lines of, "If the American public ever discovered what we've really been doing to them, they would chase us down the street and lynch us from the nearest lamppost." So this speaks to them knowing that the minute the vast majority of the general public come to discover the number that these bastards have been doing on them, it's game over for them if we are able to come together and our united numbers like that. So they're completely reliant on the bought and paid for mainstream media to give us the version of events that they want us to perceive. And they're very worried about what would happen if large numbers of people ever discovered the truth. So there's some optimism in there for me, in thinking that if we can ever find a way of reaching enough people with cold, hard truths, that there's some hope to be gained from that. I do agree with Nathan that the vast majority of people are under mind control and slavery, but I don't think it's unbreakable, and I don't think all hope is lost.
Well, there's something that came to mind. It's we usually refer to this sort of scenarios as problem, reaction, solution, but there's also the crisis, chaos, opportunity, and it's all it's a matter of who will take the opportunity. Because just think about the potential for this situation to be exploited by humanity if we weren't almost all under mind control. And something that also you said, Mark, right now, that we just need a few moments at some mainstream, broadcasting, on some mainstream channel, and just think about what's happening to the economic system, and what better occasion than this to discover that, to find out that, to realize that we are living inside an illusion, because all of this is an illusion, like democracy, constitutions, and the economic and monetary system, probably most of all. And just look at what happened to what is happening to the economy in just 1 week of lockdown, of businesses being shut down, of people going out of work. The economy is pretty much falling. And what's the, right now it's going to be bad for us, but just think about the implications of this if we finally came all together in just 1 week. Imagine, if we withdraw ourselves from the system, not supporting it anymore, not paying any more taxes, avoiding all the banks, etc., not feeding the beast. In just 1 week, imagine what will happen. In 1 year, the world will be a completely different place. And in a few months, 1 month probably, their whole system, their whole house of cards would have been destroyed, would have crumbled. So imagine, just think about that. Just think about what kind of teaching we could gain from this experience. But again, as Nathan said, who's gonna take the opportunity? Right now, it's them that they are exploiting
because they've got most of their mines. All the whilst they hold 99% of the mines out there.
Yeah,
it's always going to be driven in the direction they want to drive it in, and it's been going on for hundreds, if not thousands, of years. And look where we're at. We've been talking about this kind of lockdown scenario, and then it's happened. It's happening. And if this is a seasonal thing, then it could well happen next year, and people will be begging for it again because they're still plugged into the mainstream telly. Yeah, I mean, on a positive note, if we look
Are
at,
you sure?
Yeah, I'll go. I'll do it once. Looking at all the pollution that's not going on because of all of the industry shutdown, and like the rivers in Venice and everything all clearing up, and so that's really nice to see. Nature having a breather and sort of coming back to life.
They don't seem to be chemtrailing anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think everyone's been chemtrailed. That's probably
Maybe the pilots have all got the virus.
Mm-hmm. Along those lines, there was somebody that did mention something. Isn't it funny, with all this corona stuff breaking out, all these mass shootings seems to have stopped. All these terrorist attacks seems to have stopped. All these wars, all this bad stuff that people were doing to each other. It's like, what happened to that? I guess they don't want to catch the coronavirus, so they're not going out shooting. Yeah, well, I guess they don't want to. Yeah, so it's interesting how that works, huh?
Yeah, but ISIS wear masks anyway. They've got their ski masks, so they're safe.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So I think we're pretty good there. I mean, we've done maybe an hour and a half or something, but anybody have any final thoughts, anything positive, negative, or whatever final things here before we start wrapping this up?
Well, if I can just jump in, my feeling is that by the time June, July comes around, we're going to see this thing easing off. Nathan mentioned there the seasonal aspect of it, and the fact that flus and common colds don't tend to thrive in the hotter months. So there's been a lot of talk about June and July as well. When Boris Johnson first announced the government crackdowns in the UK, he said, I'm confident we can get this thing beat in 12 weeks. And he said that in mid-March. So 12 weeks on would have been mid-June, almost as if he knows that something is going to happen in mid-June. There's a very interesting video from Michael Stipe, the singer of REM, I don't know if any of you guys saw that, but he put out a video a couple of weeks ago on St. Patrick's Day. And he was kind of taking the piss because they just closed all the pubs in Ireland. Who would ever have believed that they could close all the pubs in Ireland without a revolution? Yet they have. So he made this video on St. Patrick's Day, and he's singing the REM song, "It's the end of the world as we know it, but I feel fine." And to me, it's straight mockery. He's got a smirk on his face like Jupiter's delight. He knows what's going on. And he says, "Happy St. Patrick's Day. Don't worry, we'll celebrate in 4 months." And he says that twice in the video. We'll celebrate in 4 months. 4 months on from March is July. It's almost as if he knows that by July, this thing will have passed. So I would say to people, keep an eye on that time frame, June, July. It wouldn't surprise me if things start to back off then, and it wouldn't surprise me that it's known that this is going to be the case. I just want to leave it at that.
Nathan?
You know, I agree. I think it's been a genius play. You know, and the hoax aspect of it would be the falsifying of numbers and using it to their advantage massively. And yeah, I think mid-May, going into June, the virus would have pretty much cleared up, which it does seasonally. Yeah.
Francesco.
I just really hope that people, like I said, the real virus, you know, of religious thinking and Stockholm syndrome. That's the problem that we will face. So we're all going to end up properly locked down in the future. You know, it's just going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Just want to say that you know, this is again, this is not to be taken lightly anyway. Whether people think whether people are worried about the virus or not, but the situation is not going to be. Doesn't have to be taken, you know, lightly. And this is a societal change type of event. This is massive, and many people are comparing it to 9/11, but I actually remembering something that I've read on when I started to read the book Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley, and now I actually think that this is more of a this is not much like 9/11. This is more like the World War I, actually, as the level of societal change that they want to bring in, because they had at the time a society, a civil society that was evolving, even in you know, some, you know, maybe we would say, you know, libertarian thought also, and boom, they provoked they provoked World War I, and now I think it's more or less the same thing. They couldn't start an outright war again, but they did it, you know, this way, with a virus, with an illness, and the goal, yes, completely change society, and as Nathan was saying, you know, get us even more into slavery. So it's not to be taken lightly. We have to really start paying attention for the people that will do that. Maybe the majority still won't do that, but I don't know. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say.
Okay. Well, listening to what you guys said, it brought up just a couple of quick final things here. Yeah, if around June, July, things start, you know, the peak, it starts dying out and disappears, either like all the other major catastrophic news, it's no longer, you know, bleeding, so it's not going to lead, so it just gets forgotten, and what's the next thing? However, it's also going to be used to praise the medical establishment, CDC, and government. See, locking you all up, it did away with the virus. See, we did this the same way the vaccines, you know, of polio and stuff. Like, look, the polio virus did it. Like, nobody's going to look at the stats that you know, it was already, you know, going down before the vaccination, but they said, oh, the vaccination did it. So nobody's going to look at the fact that, wait, seasonal heating, it's dying off by itself. Nope, it's because of what government did. So again, there's going to be some more mind control kind of manipulation going on there. I wouldn't doubt. So yeah, and then I guess that's pretty much it. I don't know anything else. So hopefully,
I like Mark Devlin's idea on hijacking the mainstream media. I think we need to do it for longer than half an hour, though. I'm thinking a couple of days. Just Passio's natural law presentation 24/7. Might wake a few people up.
Yeah, 24/7.
One day that may happen. One day, a few of us might find a way of making that work.
Yeah. All right. Well,
thank you, Ivan.
So, yep. Thanks everyone for joining. Mark Devlin,
thanks,
if you have a website link, everybody real quick, YouTube channels or anything for people to get your information. Mark?
You can catch me at markdevlin.co.uk, or my YouTube channel is Mark Devlin TV.
All right, Nathan.
Just Google my name, Nathan Riddett. I've got YouTube channels, interviews with Mark and Francesco and bits and pieces up there. Thank you.
All right. And Francesco, I know your YouTube channel.
I have a YouTube channel called the Free Thinker TS. And I still haven't put up any website, but you can. And I also have a BitChute channel with the same name, and I'm even on mine, just in Italian, it's Libero Pensatore TS. So
okay, yeah, I know you have quite a bit of Spanish with the conference that was gonna occur until this, shit went down. But yeah, you got.
They're talking about doing it on completely online, so like streaming things. So we'll see how that goes.
Right.
And Nathan and myself were due or are due to be at the Seed for Growth event in Ohio in late May. Mark Passio is due to be the keynote speaker there. Whether that event goes ahead or not now is anybody's guess. But as far as I understand, it's still on the table at the moment.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. Well, my stuff is at freeyourmindaz.com. Whatever, current stuff I may or may not put up there. I don't know. I've been lazy about that. But I know Francesco will be uploading this with subtitles on his YouTube, and then I'll also put it on mine. So I guess that's it for this one. Hopefully we shared some light on, true things that's going on, what might be going on, shed some light on some of the lies, maybe ease some of the fears, maybe created some new fears unintentionally. But yeah, so again, this is what's going on now. So yeah, might as well put some somewhat level, balanced, critical thinking, thoughts out there regarding this topic. So again, everyone just do your own research. Apply the trivium, take the information in, process it, and then, put out some good, clean information best you can. All right. So that's it.
Right, I'm off down the pub. Oh, shit. No.
All right. So that's it for, I don't even know what episode number this was, but this is the first video one. So, all right. For Guy Next Door Speaks, this is I'm from Phoenix. And as I always say, depending what time of day you're watching or listening to this, good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and be well.